Okay, good morning, everyone. It looks like we had a little difference in a link that I was using to not sure what was going on. Um, Perfect. Now they're giving me a thumbs up that everybody can hear and see my presentation. So let me get my spreadsheet back up. Blur my background so you don't see my messy desk. Okay, let's start this all over again. So welcome. Today we are going to be doing kind of like a beginner, intermediate, and show some differences between using Excel and using Google Sheets. And today on the agenda, we are going to be doing 4 different things. I've got a spreadsheet of data. This is not actual students' names and ID numbers and teachers. This is from a database that I get from PowerSchool. So today, the first thing on our agenda is we are going to do a text to column. And let's say that you export data and you've got a column that's got teacher names or student names, and it's last comma first name. So we're going to use text to column to parse that out. The second thing I'm going to show is what's called conditional formatting, and we're going to find the highest value. And then we're also going to use a function in a formula to calculate total fees that a student owes. And then the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to do a pivot table so we can get counts by, let's say we want how many teachers have EL or IFAP or EO or any of those type of things. We can do a count basically using a pivot table. We can also do this by grade levels, counts of GPAs. So that's quite a few different things you can use on doing a pivot table. And then at the end, if we have some time on Google Sheets, there's a few little extra little things that I've got to show you on using those, basically called smart chips. So to get started on our first thing, which is we're going to separate our text. So in my teacher column, I have their last name, comma, space, first name, and then some of our teachers actually have a middle initial. So that's got a comma and a space that we're going to need to separate out. So the first thing I'm going to do to start is I know I need 3 columns because, or I can see that I've got last name, first name, and the middle name. So I'm going to add 3 blank columns next to my teacher name. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to highlight my 3 columns, and I'm going to tell Excel to insert 3 columns. So now I have my 3 blank columns right here to separate my data. So I'm going to come over to my first one here. I'm going to label this as my last name. This is going to be my first name. Oops. And this is going to be my middle initial. And I'm not typing too well this morning. Okay, in here, I'm going to come up, I'm going to go to data, and I'm going to tell it to text to column. Whoops. Data, text to column. And I'm going to leave it here as the default to delimited. I'm going to click on next. And this is where you need to tell Excel, how do you want your data separated? In this case, I needed to have it separated by a comma. And you can see it's already finding the comma down here. But I also need to tell it that I have a space in there. So I can click multiples in here. And now it's telling me to give my preview. This is what it's going to look like. And I'm going to say, yep. I'm going to say next. I'm going to leave it general. And I'm going to say finish. And of course, my first thing I do this morning is it separates it in the original column that it was and parsed it out. So I really didn't need this column right here that I said. So that's how to do your text to column in Excel. Now, I'm not a big Google Sheets, so bear with me on the Google Sheets. I export all day long out of PowerSchool and use Excel. So Google Sheets is something I only really use when I need to share it with somebody. So you'll have to bear with me on this one. I'll going to be using my little cheat sheets I have. And in this one, I'm going to select my column. So this is my last name, first name. Here, I'm going to come up to data. And I'm going to say split text to column. And it automatically did it for me. I didn't have to tell it. Now, the one thing that I've noticed on Google Sheets is that it automatically tries to guess what you want. So in this case, it found my comma, but it did not do my middle initial that had a space in between the first name and the middle initial. So in this case, it works, but there's a little kind of window down here and it detected automatically. So if I come down to this little up and down arrows, I could also do a custom. And this is where I can pick them. So now I can do a space and then now it's separated just like Excel. So a little different steps, you still get the same results. One thing I'm not a fan of is this. If you notice, it kept the comma here. So that's one thing that I'm not real thrilled with in Google Sheets. So you kind of see the differences. There's good, there's, on which they work differently. So it's whichever you're comfortable with is on that aspect of it. So the next, conditional formatting. I use this a lot. This is a great tool to apply to your chosen formatting and sales range that meet your defined conditions. One useful way in conditional formatting is to identify and highlight the highest values. So in my case, I have a column here of GPAs. You can use this, the same type of feature if you have state test results or anything that you have a column that has, I like to use mostly for numbers because I want to see who has the highest. I could go up and in Excel, I could put a filter on here and I can filter, or I can select all my data and I can do a sort if I wanted it that way. But let's have Excel do it for us and find all the GPAs that are greater than or equal to 3.75. So I know some of our schools like to give presidential principal awards for honor rolls if they get a certain GPA of higher. We do have a report in PowerSchool that you could run for GPA searches, but if you have the data in an Excel spreadsheet, this is a great way of doing a conditional formatting. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select my GPA column. And then I'm going to come and make sure that I'm in my home tab. And in my home tab right here is a conditional formatting. I'm going to click on the little arrow. I'm going to go highlight my cell rules. And then over here, I'm going to say greater than. And then my new formatting rule comes up. I'm going to leave it as my classic, or you can change. I like style as classic. And then from here, I'm going to say format only cells that contain. And then down here, I'm going to say greater than or equal to. And then in this little box right here is where I'm going to tell Excel, I'm looking for anybody that has a 3.75 or higher, and I want it to highlight my fill color and my font in a dark red. I'm going to click on OK. And now here are all my students that have a GPA for Q1 of 3.75 or higher. I also use conditional formatting as a way of trying to find what students are on or not in my list. If I have two, give you a good example. This one's not in my training, but if I get a list from PowerSchool of my student enrollments, and I get a list of students who are from CalPads, let's say, I can copy a group of students right here. I can come over to my other spreadsheet. I can put my student numbers in this column. And I know already, I only copied a few, but I want to see who is not. I want to compare who is on one list and who is not on a list. I can highlight that column, go to conditional formatting, highlight cell rules, and this time I'm going to pick duplicate values. But instead of saying duplicate, I can also say unique. So basically, who is on one sheet and not on another? I can click OK. All of these students in pink right here are not on my second sheet. So these students are still gray, white and black, I guess you could say. They are on the same sheet. These down here are not on the sheet. I use that a lot to kind of compare who is maybe, let's say, who has an SDC program and students that are missing the SDC program that should have it. Kind of another little example of what you can do with conditional formatting in Excel. So Google Sheets also has that same ability. I can come over here to my column right here, and I want to do the same conditional formatting. Now, under Google Sheets, your conditional formatting is under the format bar right here. I can go conditional formatting, and it already kind of highlighted my cells and what I need, but I need to tell it exactly what my trigger is going to be. So under format rules, I'm going to say is greater than or equal to, and we're going to do the same value as we did on the other one as a 3.75. It found it, and I'm going to say done. Now you do have the ability here to change any of your colors that you want. And I can say done, and here's all my students that are 3.75 or higher. Again, you can also come up here and you can format, and you can go to where's my filters? See, I don't use this very often. I can freeze. And here is where I see all my kids that qualify for my President Award. So the next one gets a little, is going to be use the sum function in Excel to add our fees that students owe. So I already made a little blank column right here. for fees that are due. And let's say these kids have a book fee, and they're not all the same because some ninth graders may have some classes and some have different classes. And they also have a sports fee. So I can come over here and I need to know how much Cody owes in fees. I'm going to click on my cell right here, and I'm going to come up to, again, my home tab. And they've got a little function right here, and I'm going to click on my sum. And Excel goes, okay, I think you want these two added together. It automatically did that for me. I'm going to say yes, and I'm just going to hit my enter key. So now I know that Cody owes $175. Now I don't have to do that for every student. I can come back up to Cody, and down in this bottom right corner is a little square, and I can click and drag, and that will automatically do that filter for all of those students. I can double click it, and as long as there's a value in the cell to the left of me, it will do that formula all the way down to all of our students. And of course, I had these other students here for my conditional formatting, but there's no fees here. So it came 0. You can also do, if we need to know a total of total book fees, we can come down to the bottom of that column. I can click in the next available cell. I can click auto sum. And again, Excel's going, okay, I think you want a total of this column. I'm going to hit my return or enter. And now I can see we have $8,285 worth of book fees for our 249 students. Now to do that same thing, whoa, where's my columns? I lost my columns over here. Wow, I lost all of my data over here. Okay, total fees. So in Google Sheets, to do your total fees, I'm going to click in my total fee column, and I'm going to go to insert, and you have a function. And then I'm going to say sum. And then here it's saying, where is your, what's called a range. I'm going to click and drag from J2 to K2 and hit my return. And here's my fill. Now, in this case, I like Google Sheets because Google Sheets in this one says, hey, I think you're going to do the same formula all the way down. And it automatically did that, but it's saying this is your suggested. If I want this down, so I don't have to drag it all the way down, I can click on the little checkbox and say, yes, that's exactly what I wanted. So it thought about, hey, let's do it for her. Yes or no, is that what you wanted? And I said, yes. Quicker way. So not everybody has Excel. There are some features that Google kind of thinks ahead of time and says, hey, I think you're going to want to do that. And it gives you that little pop-up to confirm yes or no. And then the same, I can come down to the bottom of my sheet and do my sum also here. Do my function and do my sum. Go all the way up, highlight, hit return, and there's my sum. Now, if you have counts, you can do the same with counts under the same insert function if you have a count. So if you need to say how many kids are ninth grade or how many kids total, it would do that for you also. Pivot tables. I love pivot tables. A lot of people really struggle with pivot tables. Pivot tables are a great way to summarize a large amount of data. So for an example, if you have a file containing student names, their grade level, their ELA status, maybe their current math teacher or their homeroom teacher, you can analyze the distribution of students in the math class by their ELA status. It's a great way of getting any type of count that you want. A lot of people struggle with how to set it up. I always say, play with it, get data and kind of play with it. Because the more you play with it, the more you will understand how it works. In Excel, I'm going to come back over here, and I want a pivot table based on their grade level and their ELA status. I'm going to come over, excuse me, and I'm going to click on any cell in my spreadsheet. And then in my Insert tab, I'm going to come up to Data, and I like to use Summarize with a pivot table. Oops, hold on. There we go. Data and my pivot table. And now here is my range of all of my data. I'm going to come up to OK. Why is it invalid? Let's get this out of here so we don't get our counts of blanks here. Okay. Okay, data, pivot table. Okay, why is my, please tell me this is not. It doesn't like my, okay. It doesn't like all these other columns. So come back up here. Okay. Here is my pivot table wizard. Now you kind of have to know and start thinking about how you want it to look on the end. Then you can figure out how to set up your wizard. So I know, excuse me, that I want a count of grade level, and then I want a count of ELA status based on that grade level. Excuse me. I'm not used to talking a lot. Okay, so I know I want by grade level and I want their ELA status. So I want to see my grade level as my row. So I'm going to grab my grade level and I'm going to drag it down to my row. So now it says, okay, here's a list of your grade levels. And now I want a breakdown of my ELA status by grade level. So to do that, I need to take my ELA status and drag it down below my grade level in my rows. So then now it says, okay, 9th grade, I have these kids that have the status. 10th grade, I have an EO. 11th grade, I only have EO. But I need to get my counts still. So I want my count of ELA status. I'm going to grab that and drag that down to my value. Now, sometimes when you're doing this, your value down here is going to come out as a count or a sum. I don't need a sum, but if it does come out as a sum for you, you click on the little I right here, And this is where you can tell tell Excel that you want a sum, a count, maybe an average, a max, a minimum, but I want to count. So I'm going to say, okay. So now I have it by ninth grade. I have 137 students. Of those 137, I have 14 EL students in ninth grade. I have 76 EO students, and I have 16 IFEP students. I have 11 RFEP. I have 20 TBD. And then for 10th grade, I have 58 students, and all 58 of those students are English only. And then I have my 11th graders are 54, and all 54 of them are EO for a total of 249 students. I could also, if I didn't want my grade level in rows, let's say I wanted my grade levels to go across in a column, I can come up here back to my wizard, and I can grab that grade level and I can drag it over to column. And then in this case, here's my EL still in my row down here, but now my grade level is across in columns. So I can see here's my 9th grade, here's my 10th, and here's my 11th. If I had any blanks, students that were in a grade level or a non-grade level that had either a blank grade level or a blank ELA status, they would be listed in this column. So you can do it different ways. You can also do filters. Let's say I just want to look at my 9th graders. I can also turn the filter on at the top and just show my 9th graders. A lot of people like this one. It's for doing your EL status, your ethnicity and race. So if you're familiar with PowerSchool and you pull up the enrollment summary report, behind the scenes, this is what it is doing behind the scenes. It's creating a pivot table that shows your grade levels and it shows all your race ethnicity. That is a pivot table by counts. If I wanted to even go further and I wanted to break this down by teacher, I can come here, grab my teacher, I can drag it down here. And in this case, because in the row, I have ELA status first, and then I have the homeroom teacher second, it's showing the EL status and then the teacher. Now I can move these around and say, I want my homeroom teacher first and my ELA status second. So now I have my teacher's name here, and then count of ELA status by grade level of that teacher's classroom. So again, just like a class count, it's giving me count. She has 62 kids, and then it's giving me a breakdown by their ELA status. I can also even drag, if I want my grade level back over here, but I want my teacher's name over here, here's my teacher's name along the top for my columns, and my ELA status now is my primary row, and then my secondary row is by their grade level. So now let's do it in Google Sheets. Google Sheets is visually, I think their pivot table formula wizard is not as helpful as it is in Excel, but I know a lot of people don't have Excel. So let's try it in Google Sheets. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select, I only need a few columns. And in this case, I'm just going to pick my first 5 columns because I want my grade level and I want my ELA status. In this case, if I wanted the teacher name, I could do the last name. You can do that. And then to do your pivot table in here, you're going to insert. And I'm going to come down here to pivot table. And I'm going to say it's going to create in a new sheet. Yes. So now I have a new tab, just like Excel. I had a new tab down here. Here's my data, but now I have my new sheet over here. And in this case, I'm going to do my rows. And here is the pivot table editor for Google Sheets. I'm going to click on add a row. And I'm going to come down here to my grade level. And I want to add another row with their ELA status. So again, here's my grade levels. Here's my ELA status based on each grade level. And now I need to come over to my values. And I want my count of my ELA status. And then here, you want to summarize. You want to make sure it always says your count and not your sum if you actually want counts of this. So here's my 9th grade. And here's my counts by 9th grade of their ELA status, my 10th and my 11th. And I could also, just like over in Excel, if I wanted my grade level to be in a column, I can uncheck that one, add my column, and add my grade level. So now here is my grade level and my ELA status. Now, if I want to add my teacher name, I can come back over to my row. And you see my options are getting a little bit smaller because I've already got my row for my ELA status. So, but this time I want to pick my homeroom teacher's name. And now here's my teacher's name, and it's still by EL status first, but I can click this and drag it up. And now it's by homeroom. And now here's that teacher's ELA status by grade level. Now in Excel, when you have a workbook, not a worksheet, but a workbook, and you've done a pivot table, if you go to save this sheet, you need to make sure that you save this file not as a TXT file. Because what will happen is it will keep your pivot table. It will save just that pivot table sheet and not the one that contains all of your data. So if you have a Google Excel sheet and you've done a pivot table, make sure that you always go File, Save As, and make sure this says Excel workbook and not as a text. Otherwise, you will get your pivot table and no data to go with it. And in Excel or Google Sheets, you want to make sure, as you do all your other documents, you label it. I have not found the issue like I do in Excel with pivot tables. When you're saving it, Excel or Google Sheets will keep both your sheet with data and your pivot table. Now, if you wanted to add another rule, you can come up here and you can click and add more rules if you want these to be different. You can always, you've got your same filters up here. And if you want to edit it, you come down to your pencil and you get back your wizard here. let's say I don't like my columns, I can hit my X and it deleted that. So it deleted my grade level because I didn't really need it. Now I just have my homeroom teacher's name and my ELA status. So let's say I don't care about my ELA status, but I need to know how many kids are in each teacher's classroom. I'm going to come back over here to my ELA status. I'm going to click my X. Now I just have my count of how many kids are in those classes. So that is to show you a little bit of differences between Google Sheets and Excel. If you ever need any more help with Excel or Google Sheets, don't hesitate to let me know and I can help you. I use Excel all day long, looking at all of our student data. I'm not sure if we have any chat questions. If anybody has any questions, it looks like I'm not sure if they can put it in the chat or in the open Q&A if you guys had any questions. I'll stick around for a couple minutes if you guys had any questions. Thank you for joining me, and I hope this was helpful for you. And I do have a written presentation that I will, I'm not sure, I will put in our tips and tricks on our district website for IIS. I'm not sure if it's recorded and where it will be posted. I was not informed, so I'm not sure where it would be. Sam, I'm not real sure. I know, because everybody has access to Google and Google Sheets. I'm not sure who has Excel and who doesn't. I just know for me, I use Excel all day long because I find it easier. I use Firefox out of PowerSchool. Since I'm the PowerSchool system admin, I pull data all day long out of PowerSchool, and I have Firefox that automatically downloads and opens all of my data in Excel instantly. And I've been using Excel for probably 40 years. So I'm not quite sure who all has Excel, but we just kind of wanted to give a little bit of a, what you can do in Excel, you can do in Google Sheets and vice versa. There are a few things that you can't do in Google Sheets, or I'm sorry, that you can do in Google Sheets that you can't do, that I have not found a way in Excel, but Excel is extremely powerful. Oh yes, Lotus. Yes, I did Lotus too back in the early days. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for joining me, and welcome back from winter break. And I hope everybody has a great rest of the school year.